All right, so as you can see, I conducted a poll yesterday, which some of you participated in. Over 2,000 of you voted, and it was your predictions for this weekend's fight between Adonis Stevenson and Badou Jack for the WBC light heavyweight title. Overall, Badou Jack is a pretty big favorite, according to my subscribers. 64% of you have picked Badou Jack to win. Only 33% of you have picked Adonis Stevenson to win. And 3% have picked draw or technical decision. And in terms of methods of victory, the most popular method of victory is Jack on points with 37% of the vote. Second most popular method of victory is Stevenson by KO, which is 28% of the vote, followed by Jack by KO at 27%. Stevenson on points, just 5% of people think Stevenson can win this fight on points. And as I say, 3% with a draw or technical decision. So yeah, just to reiterate, 27 plus 37, that's 64. Right? 64% of you guys think that Badou Jack is going to win this fight. And only 33% of you think Stevenson's going to win. So you've got nearly twice as many of you who think Jack is going to win than think Stevenson's going to win. Yeah, and I find it maybe not that surprising that there's very few people who think Stevenson can win on points, because of the fact that he hasn't been long in a fight for many years. When's the last time Stevenson really went rounds? Was it the Fonfara? No, it wasn't Fonfara, it was Beaker, wasn't it? The Beaker fight was how many years ago? 2 years ago, maybe? 3 years ago? So it's been a long time since he's been rounds in a fight, whereas Badou Jack has been rounds on numerous occasions. You know, he's been 12 rounds with James DeGale, 12 rounds with Lucian Bute, 12 rounds with George Groves. His last fight, which was against Nathan Cleverly, that didn't go too long. But other than that, he's been going long in fights quite recently on numerous occasions. Stevenson hasn't, and with Stevenson's age, I guess people are doubting his ability to actually go 12 with a guy like Badou Jack, who has shown that he can apply relentless pressure once he builds up a head of steam. So not many people think Stevenson can pull it off. And as I've said in previous videos about this fight, I think that the only way Stevenson can win this fight on points is if he sufficiently intimidates Jack early on in the fight with his power. He has to intimidate him. If Jack is not intimidated by Stevenson's power and he makes it out of the first few rounds, Stevenson is in trouble. That's my view. He has to intimidate him. He has to drop him or hurt him or buzz him or something. If he don't manage to finish him, he has to have him intimidated so he can give himself some breathing room to actually be able to win on points. If you look at the last time Stevenson went rounds, which was the Sakio Beaker fight, Stevenson slowed down a lot in the second half of that fight. His movement really slowed down to a canter. He looked very sloppy. His form was breaking down. Now, against someone as wild and unorthodox as Sakio Beaker, it can be difficult to look good. It can be difficult to keep your form and shape. I mean, you look at Andre Ward when he fought Beaker, he found it difficult to keep his shape. Joe Calzaghe, when he fought Beaker, he found it difficult to keep his shape. That's what Beaker does. He has these octopus-like arms and this horrible mauling style that is virtually impossible to look good against. So that has to be said. But still, I do think that Stevenson at 40 years old is going to struggle to keep his shape over the course of 12 rounds and will become easier to get to as the fight progresses. So I can definitely understand why very few people are picking Stevenson on points. Unless he intimidates the guy, seriously puts him in his box and keeps him under manners, then he's going to have a very, very tough time in the second half of the fight. Maybe even as early as rounds 5 or 6, maybe 4 or 5. if Badou Jack starts to pressure early, Stevenson could start feeling it. So yeah, it's, I think, pretty intuitive for most people who are picking Stevenson to be picking him by KO, you know, and most people picking Jack, picking him on points, because I guess people think that Badou Jack is going to be careful in there. He's not going to take too many risks. He's got a very tight defense, Badou Jack, but he's not a guy who moves his head. He's not a guy who really uses his legs that much when he's in attack mode to get out of the way of punches. You know, once Badou Jack decides he's going to come forward, he's not really bobbing and weaving. He's not really using lateral movement. He's there in front of you. He's just blocking shots on his arms. You know? So that could make him vulnerable. That could make him still a target. I don't think, basically what I'm trying to say is I don't think Stevenson's going to find it hard to get to Badou Jack, to find the target, if Badou Jack decides to come at him. You know, this is not a Mike Tyson with a bobbing and weaving style where it's hard to catch him clean. That's not how Badou Jack fights. He is there in front of you. He is available. He just has a very tight guard. Let me read some of these comments, actually. People have left comments here. Let's see. Start from the bottom. Read a few of these comments. This person, Trevor L, says Stevenson, Jack will pressure him for a few rounds, but I just think he'll walk straight onto something. Well, could happen. Most people here saying, or the people who are picking Jack saying he's bigger, younger, more active, etc. Yeah. Devon Sinclair reckons Jack is going to weather the early storm against Stevenson, go to his body and stop him late. Could very well happen. Stevenson by KO. So this is what I was talking about. The fact that Jack absorbs punishment by having a standard defense. He just puts his arms up and catches the shots. Now, I'm interested to see, as I said in other videos about this fight, how Jack approaches the first few rounds. I think he may move around and try and get Stevenson to exert some energy for the first few rounds. And then after that, I think he might start coming forward and attacking, you know, building up this head of steam. Because if he just goes for Stevenson right from the off, that's when Stevenson's sharp. And that's when Stevenson has his best chance of catching Badou Jack with something. So instinctively, I think Badou Jack's probably going to try and avoid Stevenson's left hand for the first couple rounds. Move around, have a look at Stevenson, see what Stevenson's doing, and then after that, try and go in. Well, we'll see. It's going to be very interesting. Very, very much looking forward to this fight. All right, Black Dynamite says Stevenson might stop him early, but I think Jack's going to preserve and go the distance. He will probably get dropped a few times also. Okay. I guess you're saying that you think Jack might get dropped. But you're going for a draw technical decision. Carl Daniel Carrington says Jack on points. Age, speed, and power goes to Jack. Sorry to say. Don't know why you're sorry to say, bro. I can't understand what you're saying. Power goes to Jack. Stevenson is a much bigger puncher than Badou Jack. I'm not sure where you got that from, but, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Stevenson is much, much more powerful. And I would also say Stevenson is quicker than Jack. Quicker handed. At least with his straight left. You know, that straight left is fast when it comes out. In terms of combinations, maybe Badou Jack might be a bit sharper on the inside with his combinations, but with single punch at long range, Stevenson's got much more speed and much more power. Scott Harris, Jack stops him in the 5th or 6th. Stevenson on points, okay. Mr. Luke Danger is one of the few people picking Stevenson to win on points. G-Man says Jack on points. Jack on points. Stevenson's left hand is legit. It definitely is. Stevenson's left hand is one of the best left hands I've ever seen in boxing. In all these decades where I've been watching this sport and been a boxing fanatic for many, many years, Stevenson's left hand is one of the best left hands I've ever seen. And I'm talking about southpaw left now. I'm not talking about left hooks from an orthodox or left jabs. I'm talking about southpaw left hands. Stevenson is it might even be the best southpaw left hand I've seen. Because off the top of my head, I can think of Stevenson and maybe Corey Sanders were the two most prolific southpaws with a straight left hand. There are other guys who have got, nice straight left hand like Pacquiao or whoever, but they didn't have the devastating force, pound for pound, of a Stevenson on the left hand. They don't have the game-changing power of Stevenson or even Corey Sanders. So I'm going to say Stevenson might even have the best left hand I've seen. From off the top of my head right now, as far as I can remember, he's got a tremendous left hand. It's incredible. All right, Jack by KO. Matthew Macy says he's very capable of doing damage against the inactive and aging Stevenson. Look at Hayes' comeback in Brown recently, not saying at the same level. All right. Flip Rock says Jack has to counterpunch if he hopes to win. He has to exploit the balance difficulties of Stevenson in counter-attacks to his left hand. That being said, I think Jack is very confident and is going to apply a lot of pressure on Stevenson early. His tight guard defense is good, but that's not enough against the guy who's dangerous on the back foot, using the jab to move gloves and launch that killer straight left hand in the chin. Stevenson is also tougher than what people think. He can take a shot and give one. If he's not suddenly too old, Adonis should stop Jack in a very entertaining 6 rounds of action. Okay. Prince Josiah says that right will connect more than once. Too many will have Jack switching up. I guess you mean the left. Okay, this person says boxing facts over fiction. You are stupid if you pick Jack. Come on now. Come on, people. It's a close fight. You're not stupid if you pick Jack. So many people say things like that about so many different fights and end up with egg on their face. It's like, come on, man. Stop it. Stop it. We're talking about competitive high-level fights here. So. Stevenson by KO. Jack is a good boxer, but Stevenson has heavyweight knockout power. Jack to win a couple of the early rounds, but then get banged out viciously before the 5th. Jack gets hit a lot, and Stevenson, if he catches you, you're getting sparked. Knock belly while standing up. It's going to be intriguing, people. Very, very much looking forward to this fight. And I still can't make my mind up about who I think is going to win. I've been going back and forth. One day I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to pick Stevenson. The next day I'm thinking, no, I'm going to pick Jack. I'm really back and forth on this fight. I cannot decide who I think is going to win. Because, as I've said before, if this was a 35-year-old Stevenson, I'd pick Stevenson. I'd be maybe 60-40, maybe 65-35 in Stevenson's favor if it was a 35-year-old Stevenson. But a 40-year-old Stevenson with such little activity over the past few years and fighting a relatively poor level of opposition against a younger, more active man who's been fighting better opposition. Yeah, this is why I'm finding it very difficult to pick who's going to win. Intuitively, I would say Stevenson early or Jack points or late stoppage, either or. But you can't discount any scenario, really. I can't discount a Stevenson points win for the reasons I've already described. If he manages to intimidate Jack with the power, he might be able to give himself enough breathing space to win a decision. You know, let me know how you feel about this in the comments, people. If you were not one of the people who voted, yeah, let me know your prediction for the fight. Are you on the fence like me, or do you have a clear idea of how you think the fight's going to go and who's going to win? Let me know in the comment section. It's Hatman, I'm out.